Okay. So hi everybody. It's good to see you. And hopefully the Biodiversity Action Plan, or the BAP as we refer to it, makes a bit more sense after I'm done. And then Brittany is going to talk about our stewardship work. So some of the work that we're doing to protect and enhance biodiversity. So with the Biodiversity Action Plan, so that's a plan that a lot of us, you can see the partners on the screen. So the club is just one partner in this collaboration that's developing this plan to look at how can we collectively protect and enhance Hamilton's biodiversity. So this is focused in Hamilton, something a lot of us have talked about for a long time. And it's really to kind of try to have a lot of our conservation and stewardship efforts under one umbrella so that we're all kind of working towards the same goal. So the partners on this are the club, the city, BARC, or Bay Area Restoration Council, the Cousteau Escarpment Eco Park System, so the Secretariat part, Hamilton Conservation Authority, and Environment Hamilton. So those are the partners that are putting this draft. So right now it's a draft Biodiversity Action Plan together. And then we've had support from the city of Hamilton and then ArcelorMittal Dofasco. Okay, so just to make sure that we're all on the same page about this, so biodiversity, so biological diversity, variety of life on Earth. And with this, we're looking at kind of the three different parts of biodiversity. So we're looking at species diversity, so the number of different species that are out there, the genetic diversity, so the different types of species that might be, and then ecosystem. So kind of the whole big definition of biodiversity. And why are we doing this? Well, I think for here, all of us understand the importance of biodiversity. You know, it's important. Nature is important for nature's sake, just that intrinsic value. But it's also important for a lot of the community benefits and the health benefits that we get from it. So we'll get cleaner air, cleaner water, these kind of things. This is something that I think all of us understand, but still, why are we talking about it? You know, we like nature, we like being out in nature, we like talking about biodiversity, but why are we spending so much effort on creating a BAP, or a Biodiversity Action Plan? Because we have the biodiversity crisis. So our biodiversity crisis and our climate crisis are kind of intertwined. And so if we can help to make our biodiversity healthy and functioning, that's going to help to mitigate the climate crisis. So we need to look at both of them kind of together, which is some of what we try to do through the BAP, and something that is becoming a bit easier to do now that Linda Lukasik is leading the climate office at the city. Yep. Maybe. Okay. Does that work? No. Okay. Okay. So I wanted to just look at some of our diversity. Again, we know all of this. Some of these are areas that Bill just talked about and areas that we go to all of the time. But part of the reason that I think it's worth it to spend, and I've spent a lot of time on this, I gotta admit. And part of the reason is because I think it's worth it. We still have high biodiversity in our area. So we're not starting with nothing. We already have a lot that we can then build up from. So we have a good foundation. Yes, there's a lot wrong. Yes, a lot of things are a mess, but we have a lot of good things too. And part of it is our diversity of habitats. So, you know, we have the escarpment, we have the lake, we have coots, we have forests, we have wetlands. We kind of have it all here, which is unusual, and something to celebrate. You know, our biodiversity is something that I think we should be proud of because we still have it. You know, and that's a lot of the work that the club has done for 104 years. And so it is these habitats that is part of the reason that we still have some fairly high biodiversity that gives that really good foundation that we can kind of keep trucking along to protect and enhance more of it. And our urban area too. Like you guys have heard me talk about some of our urban conservation work. Brittany will talk a bit more about it. There it can be, and I think there's potential for even more work to enhance biodiversity in our urban areas. So that's something we've been working on for about 10 years and something that we'll continue to build on. And that came out within the Biodiversity Action Plan a lot. There are a lot of proposed actions within it. And so I wanted to introduce this because I don't know if everybody's familiar with the natural heritage system that the city created. So they put this natural heritage system together, I don't know, probably a million years ago. But what they did is they looked at our core areas, so big dark green. So these are a lot of our environmentally significant areas and things like that. And then how can those areas be connected? And so that's what they call them, linkages, but it's corridors. We just use different words. And so this doesn't mean that it's protected, but this is a natural heritage system that the city has developed that looks at how can we this is what we have or had. But this is kind of what we're starting from. And these link, and you can see like there are lots of green space, especially if we look in the urban core and around some of the airport lands, and you can see the escarpment going through the city. We need more linkages or corridors. Like we need a lot more of that. But you can see how much dark green that there is. Doesn't mean that it's protected, but it's there. And so this is like kind of what we're working from, and with some of the discussions that are ongoing is to look at is this a current map? What does it look like now? How protected, where big GIS exercises are needed as we look at implementing the Biodiversity Action Plan, to look at what is there, what does it really look like, what is actually protected, that kind of thing. But there are some really good policies that we can work from and maybe try to make stronger and make sure they're enforced the way that we want them to be and stuff like that. So just to kind of introduce you to that. And then a bit of the background. So anything that's a collaboration, add a few years to when you think it's going to be done. I have learned that. But I have also learned that I think this is the way to go. So we started our discussions in 2018. And then for a couple of years, there were just a few of us kind of getting together on the side to try to motivate the partners to agree that this is a good thing to be doing and a good way to move forward. Then in 2020, the city did agree that, yes, we should look at developing a biodiversity action plan in collaboration with the conservation community. And I think we can all agree that there was really no point in moving forward until we had the city as a partner. So, all of that foundation and that legwork that we did ensured that the city came on as like a fully invested partner. So it takes a while, but I think it is worthwhile. So then council approved the development of the BAP, gave us some money. We got some more money from the PASCO, and then took some time because it's a collaboration. So then we came out with the draft Biodiversity Action Plan this spring, and then had consultation over the summer, and now we're going through the comments that we received from our stakeholders, from the public, kind of from everybody. We're going through all of those, inserting them into the document, and we're actually spending the time to go through the comments comment by comment, not for the editing comments, but just like we got some really good comments, to have the discussion so everybody's in agreement and everybody's on the same page. And why I think this effort and this time has been worthwhile is because we have so many different city staff engaged in this. So we could have, I'm sure we could have campaigned and had the city go and get a consultant to develop the plan. Sure, probably would have been a plan that nobody was happy with, to be honest. But we could have done that. Would have been a lot less work for all of us. How many city staff really would have known about this plan? What, 2? Would have come up at council. They would have said, okay, that's good, let's go, and then be done. So now we have every department from the city has commented on this plan. We have 3 city staff who come to bi-weekly meetings for like a few years. We had a stakeholder consultation session in the spring, and we had like 12 or 13 different city staff people at that meeting, along with, you know, like the countless others who provided comments. So the city is fully, I mean, all of the partners are, but the rest of us, it's kind of what we do every day. So the city is fully invested in this. And I think part of it is because we've been spending the time. Like, I have counselors asking me, like, when is it coming, Jen? And, you know, you hear them talking about, like, they refer to it, even though it's still draft. Well, I'll get to it in a minute, but we won't have a final till next year. But so people are talking about it. People are seeing the benefits of it. So it's taken longer, but it's not like all of us have just been standing still, not doing anything. Like, stuff has still been happening, and the city has already started doing some for what they can do before council approves the full draft. So I think this is like a really good news story. We need to keep up the pressure for when it comes time to implementation and then resourcing and things like that. But don't worry, I will let you know what I need. So yes, we were, with the funding that we received, we were able to hire a coordinator who helped us to kind of really get this thing off the ground, and then a writer, and then lots of input from the staff from the partnering agencies has gone into this, as well as broader internal discussions within the partner organizations. And it's been very collaborative. You know, everybody has, like, well, we don't vote, but everybody has equal billing around the table, no matter how big or small you are. So yeah, it's a very, very collaborative initiative. And we've tried to show it that everybody has a role to play. So this isn't like, hey, city, can you go away and fix the biodiversity issue in Hamilton? Because we all contributed to the mess. So we all are responsible for helping to clean it up. And so we're trying to show in the BAP, and hopefully even more in the revised BAP, that there is a role for everybody, all residents, all organizations, all city departments. There's a role for everybody. And you know, we've had some very interesting comments from a range of city departments, and some of them have learned what each other does, because everybody, like, you work in your area, right? So this is helping to show that that there are other city departments and city staff that they can all talk to themselves. So there's been like lots of spin-off benefits, I guess. And so the vision, or the draft vision, should, like, it's all still draft, is a Hamilton that's resilient to climate change, celebrates nature, and provides a healthy environment for all life. And the goals, so kind of the big picture goals, are to protect biodiversity, to explore. And so a lot of this is like what the club's done for, you know, 100-some years. To explore, so get people out there, to connect. So this is partly to connect partner organizations and conservation groups, and then restore. So, you know, this is a big one. So we want to protect what we have left, basically, and then restore or enhance. Can't really restore, but enhance. And so there are 4 threats that we have come up with that are in the draft. So invasives, you guys hear I'm like a broken record with invasives at the sanctuaries. Habitat loss and fragmentation, climate change and pollution. Through the consultation, we heard a lot about what kind of boils down to human influences. So we're thinking that for the final that we will, you know, add in, like, all of these are kind of human influences, but something that's maybe a bit more specific for human influences, like over harvesting and those kind of things, lump it under maybe a 5th bucket. But I can't put that down because this is what's in the official draft right now is here. Anything that I'm just sharing is just what we've seen through the consultation. And so we've developed 7 key priorities, and then we have each of the partners has contributed actions under each of the key priorities. So I thought I'd go through each of the priorities and then kind of touch on some of the examples and some of the actions that have been proposed. There are more actions behind this, but so just example, and then really show what the club has committed to do. So the first one is, and I should say these are key priorities, they're not in order of priority. This is like, I think that's one of the things that we need to change. So this doesn't mean that it's like the number 1 priority. That just, it happens to be first, but it's not number 1. Is to develop an administrative framework to manage the ongoing implementation. So this is basically getting us a BAP coordinator to keep us all in line, and to make sure that everything that the partners and everybody has agreed to do is happening. It's, if anybody's familiar with the Coots to Escarpment Eco Park system, you know, another partner collaborative. So with the staffer who again, you know, keeps us in line, or the RAP office, the Remedial Action Plan, same kind of model, with having that central coordinator that just kind of knows everything. So all of the partners, like right now, we're all doing everything, but that way the partners can focus on what we've committed to do. So that's, and then looking at the funding and looking at our formal BAP, like committee or whatever that looks like. So kind of the admin behind the scenes. So maybe not as fun, but kind of critical to make everything else happen. And then the second is understand our current baseline state of Hamilton's biodiversity to inform future monitoring and priorities. So, you know, we want to submit some kind of annual report card to all of the partners and to the community. We also, for the club, so, and highlighted in blue is the club, getting our natural areas inventory. So the club has already been spearheading discussions about what the next natural areas inventory is going to look like. For those who aren't familiar, we started the NAIs in the early 1990s, and that's what led to like a double or tripling of recognized environmentally significant areas in the official plan, was us leading these natural areas inventories. So looking at what is it going to look like now. So one of the exciting things is that when the BAP was put forward to council in May, there was also a motion put forward to give the club $200,000 to get the NAI going again. That is not for the club, that's for the, so the club then, you know, that also puts the onus on the club to get this going. But so there's already some money behind this, which makes it a lot easier to get partners to the table to get this stuff going, because we're not saying, so it's still going to be led by the club, the city, and the Hamilton Conservation Authority, which is what all of them have done to date. So stay tuned. We're still figuring out what this is going to look like. But the exciting thing is that this is already, the framework is starting to be put in place then for the 2024 field season to really get going. So the club is responsible for that. Oops. And then here's our big protection. So to protect our natural areas, there's a lot of people that want everything that we have left to be protected. So you can see some of the different examples of actions that partners have put forward. And again, something that that the club can play an important role at, and I think something that the club has done well for decades is to facilitate. So bring everybody together, say, what are your plans for securing land? So acquiring land somehow so it's permanently protected, and kind of, getting everybody around a map and looking at what does everybody think might happen in the next 20, 30, like these things aren't fast, but next 20, 30 years, what are areas that they are looking at? And then what's missing, like what isn't being captured? And then kind of the other ones I'm focusing on the club led, like the club will probably be involved in most of these, but things that the club is leading on. And then key priority 4, so this is our communications and education, is kind of the gist of this one. So, our ongoing community planting events that I know many of you have come out to over the years. And this is where we get into some of that urban conservation, bringing nature back to the city. There is a lot of industrial land that is grass, that's kind of just a waste that we can do a lot with, like along Burlington Street, kind of wasted. So talking with our industrial partners and seeing, hey, like, let's talk about different ways to have your landscaping done. And then some of these things we're already doing, but we wanted to have it in the BAP to recognize and maybe build on it. So looking at, like our awards program, we already have our Monarch Awards and our certification programs, but maybe kind of building on those. And then something that we've again already started is a focal habitat site in each ward. So to look at, here's how you can plant native trees, shrubs, wildflowers to create habitat, the garden for nature, in your space, whatever kind of space that is. And so having a focal habitat, it gets the counselors involved, it gets lots of people involved, it'll be in a public space. So kind of show different examples of site prep and what people can do at home. So we already have them in like 4 of the 15 wards. So we're submitting a funding application to look at a couple more, not 11, like 1 or 2, because we still have to maintain all of the other ones that we've already created. So, in this key priority 4, there are lots of things to keep the club busy. And then key priority 5, that's our independent. So you can see is like key priority 5 should maybe be key priority 1 or 2 in terms of priority, but these are invasives. So managing our invasives. Some of these discussions have already been underway for the last couple of years. Like there's already Hamilton Conservation Authority already kind of chairs a biannual meeting with conservation groups to talk about who is doing what to manage invasives and to share tips and tricks and that kind of thing. So maybe enhancing that and things like that. So yeah, so big focus on invasives. And then we can't forget our aquatic habitats. So key priority 6 is all about our aquatic habitats, and, you know, protecting and enhancing our wetlands, but also looking at our degraded water courses and water bodies. So, you know, a lot of this is looking at low impact development. I'm not an aquatics person, but all of that kind of stuff. So we do have aquatics people. Don't worry, it's not me, but we do have aquatics people as part of the team. And maybe, like, you know, supporting HCA in their work in salt fleet to mitigate flooding downstream by creating these massive wetlands. And then other initiatives that the city is doing. That's one of the things that these discussions brought forward, is that the city is actually already doing, or already has plans, which means it's already at least semi-budgeted to do some really cool stuff. They just don't always talk about it. So this has kind of brought out some of that. So there more to come on this. And then key priority 7 is our planning policy, that kind of stuff. And so one of the things for the club, and it, like, in addition to supporting all of these other things, is looking at working with the planning department to see if there are developments into areas where there are species that we want to protect, and if we can mobilize people, let's try to go out and do some plant salvages in areas where possible and where there are teams and that kind of thing. Something that we've done in the past, but just kind of getting it in there so that maybe we have more than a day. So because these developments, they know they're happening more than a day ahead. So kind of just getting it into the system. So this BAP is, you know, it's meant to be an action plan. I wanted it to be an action plan from the beginning. Didn't want to go through the step of developing a biodiversity strategy and then an action plan. If we want a biodiversity action or strategy, we can take Toronto's and sub out Hamilton for Toronto. Boom, there's your strategy. And so it's meant to be action. It's meant to be 0 to 5 years. So this is meant to get everybody around the table and then look at what is it going to look like with everybody around the table. Because now that we have solid interest and support and commitment from the city, more partners want to come around the table. So we have Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority is on our steering committee now, after attending our stakeholder working group and seeing that, yes, the city is invested in this, so it's kind of worth the time and stuff. Yeah, so we're getting more and more interest in, you know, like where it was like echoes 3 years ago. Now we're getting more and more interest of people wanting to be involved. So then we have a few years, or the committee has a few years to figure out what does the next iteration of the BAP look like, now that everybody's around the table. Realistically, we might have our work done. Hopefully we'll have our work done by the end of this year. But in terms of then the work back, like it takes 2 months to get on the list to go to council and things like that. So we're looking at hopefully first quarter 2024 for the final BAP to come out. But final being like, this is meant to be a working document. So, you know, like we say, consultation is officially closed. Well, you can always talk to me if you see things, because it's not meant to be, you know, here it is, we're done, it's going in a frame, we're done forever. It's meant to be a working document, which is why it's 5 years, why it's not 30 years, because that's just beyond what we can really think about. Yeah, so stay tuned. And we'll, you'll be hearing a lot more, maybe more than you wanted to know about the Biodiversity Action Plan. But it's exciting. We're the only ones who are doing it this way. Most people just get consultants to do it. But I think this is going to have far more of an impact on the ground than just having a consultant go out and do it. So does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
You're talking about stakeholders. Is the Home Conservation Authority have so much Hamilton land?
Yes, they've been involved when they can. So they don't have somebody like at the table all the time, but they've been contributing when they can.
In regards to the next NAI, are they involved in that too, saying they have so much Hamilton land? Or not so much?
That's a good question for Brian McCaddy.
Brian?
Who he might be hearing this right now, actually. Yeah, so he's kind of leading this for the club. I don't know all of the details. Pete?
Yeah, I was just wondering if I didn't see in your, are there any initiatives to encourage people with their own residential properties to start planting? And I guess aside from the street trees that the city's been planting, I'm just thinking of like the Doug Townley books where he's really asking people to start planting their own properties with native plants, encouraging biodiversity that way.
There is. And so I guess I forgot to do this last time, sorry. But for those online, the question is, are there actions in the BAP to encourage people to plant native plants and garden for nature at home? Yes, there are. Like ongoing workshops, work through HCA or the Hamilton Conservation Authority Stewardship Program for larger landowners, and then all of our ongoing work to try to get the word out. Yes, and the idea is that would then be like ramped up even more.
Another question, if I may.
Yeah.
There seem to be some other city initiatives that may end up conflicting with this, like the secondary dwelling units. Have you bumped into that at all, or?
So this question is the BAP going to conflict or potentially conflict with other city initiatives like secondary dwellings? So I guess we have bumped into a bit, not specifically with that initiative, more in terms of like the urban tree or strategy, the tree strategy, and the climate plan and things like that. I don't see this as conflicting with anything. I think the idea is like simple. Everybody does what they can with what they have where they are. So if you put a secondary, for example, and I don't know the policy, but if you're allowed to put a secondary dwelling like backing onto your alley or whatever, then yeah, you're not going to have as much space to have like a forest in your backyard. But maybe you can do more low impact developments to make sure that you manage the stormwater with the extra impermeable surface that's going to be in your yard. Maybe you can, like, what you're able to do is maybe have more of a focus on that because you've lost some of the yard space. So that's what we're trying to get across is for this 5 years is like everybody has a role. That role is going to look different for everybody depending on the space you have. Yeah, Dana.
Looks like a big part of this will be, I think, what priority was it? Kind of the administrative thing, just the state of biodiversity action plan, like in Hamilton, reporting. And that sounds like it's going to be a big endeavor to like herding cats, right? All
Yeah.
these programs that are going on and anything new that's gonna come online. And then somehow wrap it all up and say, here's what it means from year to year, like here's the progress. Because that's like, it's gonna be tough to see the progress of the action plan and the state of reporting.
Right, and for those at home, it's looking at how are we going to scope the state of biodiversity reporting, and what is that going to look like? How are we going to measure our success over time? And yes, that's something that we've talked about a lot, and something that we realized early on around the current working group table that we don't necessarily have the expertise. So the idea is in the first year to take that time to get the folks who do have the expertise to look at what do we measure, because we can't measure everything. We're not counting critters. We're like, what is the scope of this going to be, and what does the state of biodiversity report look like? We've had some very, very, very initial discussions, but very initial because it's massive. So we need folks to help us to scope down what is ambitious but realistic, and like what do we want to focus on. So that is like a big chunk of the initial stages during implementation. And did you have a question? Yeah.
Related to your question, it was we have partnered with this city or somewhere who are committed to assuming that the city wants to grow, right? They want to grow in some way. Is there commitment elsewhere in the system to find ways to do that sustainably? Like, whether it's land use intensification in certain areas, that balance, so that we're not like trying to hold back the tide.
Yeah. And so the question was about looking at how is our city going to grow and still protect and enhance biodiversity and in a sustainable manner while still allowing for growth. Yes, that's especially like in light of all of the bigger discussions that are happening right now. So that, I think a lot of that will come from city planning and city policies, but what the BAP will hopefully help with is to say that when you do stuff, especially like new and or retrofits, what are the green development standards? So green building or green development standards are being developed. So like, let's make sure that those fall into place. And look at, and some of this we're going to have to push for, like, that's going to be part of our role, always has been, always will be, is to stormwater management is going to be a big part of it, because there's going to be development, there's going to be more, but how do we push, especially once the BAP is adopted and endorsed and everybody has supported it, to make sure that these principles are upheld even with new development. That's going to be part of our role and like the groups.
Yeah, I was thinking about the major property owners in the city,
Mhm.
the city and conservation authority, etc. So I was wondering about approach to developers, and whether there's been any, whether you have had any outreach to those developer organizations. And secondly, living in condominium development, I'm thinking about other, multi-unit communities like and property managers that help to maintain those properties, and where our condominium, for example, could get guidance on how to better, maintain and develop our condo property.
Right. So the question was, have we reached out to some of the other big landowners across the city? It is something that we want to do, and we've tried to varying levels of success, especially in the industrial area because there's a lot of land there, a ton of land. And we have tried some with individual, like the condo boards and stuff like that. If somebody comes to us and says, hey, can you talk to my board? So that's something that there's a lot of expertise locally, a lot of resources. It's we need help getting it out to people. Yeah. But that's part of the, under key priority 4 with the communications and looking at like just getting the word out and sharing and, with if we have this city leadership that the city is saying, yes, biodiversity is important. And that's, we're kind of pursuing some of these things because it's important. Hopefully with us continuing our work and that trickle down, that will just naturally happen is my idea. That hopefully we can like then meet. Okay. So I think looking at the time, I'm gonna pass it over. So we thought, okay, here's the BAP, but we also thought this would be a good time to have Brittany come up and talk about, okay, through some of our work, what are we actually doing now to protect and enhance biodiversity? So we're going to pass it on to Brittany.
It's sensitive. Okay. Yeah, like Jen said, I'm just going to chat about a bit of what we do on the day-to-day. If you can believe Jen does more than just the BAP. Yeah. So we have quite a few different things going on. So first off, protection, we obviously have quite a number of sanctuaries that we've gathered up now. So we now protect over 500 acres and we have over 20 species at risk and countless common species that we are, keeping happy. It's impressive and it's a lot to do. We're 2 full-time staff, sometimes 1. I'll talk about how to get involved after. So this is probably 80 to 90% of our job in the field. It is invasive species management. We are not joking when we say this is a major issue. A report came out a couple of days ago and they estimated that globally invasive species cost $423 billion a year. And that's just in both management and impacts. So we try and do what we can in our spaces. So we are primarily removing plants, usually mechanically. So you can see that's our intern cat there. She's ripping out some buckthorn. Occasionally we use equipment like forest mulchers. We'll get someone out. That's the other picture there. That's when it's really bad. And the whole area before that was just multiflora rows. There was nothing else growing. So now that we've reduced that, we're hoping some nicer things come back. And very occasionally we use herbicides. So our main culprits, common buckthorn is the biggest one. We also have dog strangling vine and garlic mustard. The multiflora, Phragmites, and Asian bittersweet are more specific, but those are our big ones. And then ones we have found this year are both, or I guess last year into this year, are hemlock, woolly adelgid, and jumping worms. Those are both at Short Hills, which is why we actually closed that nature sanctuary to visitors, because those are both emerging pests in Ontario, and there's no actual management of them right now that is effective. So the next best step is prevention. So earlier this year, we are part of the Coastal Escarpment Eco Park system, as Jen said. That project, that the partners there received $3.5 million from Parks Canada, and it's to be put towards this ecological corridors pilot project. So as you can see, this is the partner map. Each partner kind of has its own sections. The two we kind of have Cartwright's in here. Sheila Dunleavy's in there. Dutka's kind of tucked in there. You can't really see it on this map. But by focusing our efforts on some of these areas, we're trying to help improve those corridors from the escarpment down to the marsh. So what we asked for in this is we had kind of asked for 2 sub-projects. We asked to manage 15 acres of invasives between Cartwright and Sheila Dundooly. And as of right now, we're at about 11, which is great considering that we have our invasive species pulls happening right now, and we still got lots of time throughout the year, so we'll hit that goal if people come out to help us. And then the other part of that funding is we were curious to see what would happen if we could get a bit of research done. So this is at Sheila Dundooly. This is 3 sets of monitoring plots. So it's, we fenced it essentially because we have an overabundance of deer in Southern Ontario and they eat everything. And we looked at the site, we looked at it with other ecologists and said, hey, there might actually be some really cool stuff that grows here. We just don't see it because it's been browsed every year for 20 years. So we stuck up some fencing. We had some lovely volunteers, some of them might be in this room, help us with that. And essentially what it is, they're 20 by 20 and it's a fenced one next to an unfenced one. And we're going to be monitoring the plants that come up there. We already did it this year to kind of get a baseline. We're going to remove the invasive species from it. And then from there, you know, just watch what grows, hopefully something cool. The other thing that we have going on research-wise, this isn't something that Jen and I do, but it's something that the board helped get going. We do have a monitoring avian production and survivorship, i.e. MAPS banding station with Catherine now, and that was in its pilot project this year, and we just found out that's going to be able to keep going, which is awesome. But basically, it's just looking and seeing. So usually banding happens during migration, and you see what's coming and going. This is what's breeding and how's it doing. So I think we had about, I don't want to steal Catherine's thunder, she's going to do a wood duck article, but I think about 20 breeding species there just from this year alone, which is awesome. And then we also do monitoring. So this is the what's here, what's there, what could be here. So we have a couple different methods we use. We have photo monitoring. So we do this at Spooky. Both the forest mulcher, like I talked about earlier, so you can see the difference. Like that's all multiflora, and now it's gone, which is great. And then we also had quite a few tip ups, like big trees coming down in the last couple of years. It looked like some downbursts happened. So we're going to do some photo monitoring there, see how that changes over time. If we're getting, you know, native versus invasive, depending how close on the trail they are, etc. Just see how they change. When we do planting projects, so when you come out and help us plant, we do go back and check what is actually growing or has survived. Just to help us understand, you know, maybe this type of plant didn't like it here or site conditions, something. And then we do early detection and delineation surveys. So this one was primarily with Hemlock woolly adelgid, which is on the far end there.
That little white thing?
Yes, a little white thing in the middle. So that's my hand, and then that's zoomed right in. So yeah, unfortunately this was found last summer by CFIA. When they basically do like scanning surveys throughout Southern Ontario. They found it as property, and then we went in because we wanted to see how far it had spread on the property. It's everywhere, which is unfortunate, but if you can catch things early and you can know where they are, you can help prevent their spread, and you can maybe treat them. So we do try to do that when possible, and we are looking at our other sanctuaries for pests like this. And then we have urban conservation, because yes, nature does not stop at the urban boundary, right? Everyone likes to say, oh, nature's out there. No, it's here. It actually tries to actively get back in every time we let it, right? We have peregrine falcons living on skyscrapers. We watch them, they do it. We need to help nature come back into the city. So yeah, our 2 big programs is one, we do more invasive species removal at Captain Cornelius Park. We have lovely volunteers for all of this. And then our Pollinator Paradise project. So this is the one Jen was chatting about, where we have a couple focal pollinator gardens already, but then we also have some of our own, essentially. So I'll just go over them quickly. We have a little one at City Hall. It's in the back parking lot, and it's just in a little like strip. It's very cute. Captain Cornelius Park, that is along the edge of the forest, and it's kind of acting as a buffer between the mowed area that everyone uses and the forest, and it's especially nice because that's where we're kind of ripping out buckthorn, so it makes a nice transition. This is not the nicest picture of Hess Street, but Hess Street, it was planted with the students back in the day. it usually looks a little nicer, but it is a hard site. It's surrounded by pavement and it's hot and it's dry and we can always use help there. Land's Inlet's kind of near the hospital, the general, and it's just more of a naturalized area now. We don't necessarily go to it, we just kind of do invasive species there. McQuestion is the one we spend probably most of the time at. When we can get an intern, we put them there. That's down in the East End by surrounding McQuestion Urban Farm. It's a huge space, but super cool and filled with pollinators. We also have Victoria Park, which has its own dedicated team, which we are forever grateful for because we basically don't have to touch it. And it's beautiful. They just redid part of it this year. The traffic circle is right outside Hess Street, just kind of in that one weird chunk of grass. It's just a little thing. And then the big one for the area is York Boulevard. That's that parkette with the big mural behind it. And we just did an expansion this year. It's still fenced off, but it's looking amazing. So those are the ones we take care of. So Jen and I and whatever staff we can gather and volunteers, always volunteers, we take care of these. So we can't do this without them. We physically, I don't think, would be able to keep this all. So like they're weeding, they're out there in the heat, they're helping us. We put these together, 5 beds in I think like 4 days from scratch to planted. It was amazing. We even have them come sometimes and they rip out plants while we're doing walks. Right, Martha? So they're always on the go. They're always helping us, and we are so grateful to have them. And with this program, we do have a certification program. So this is kind of, I should add, this is a bit of a joint project. So Pollinator Paradise Project, it was started with Environment Hamilton, and now we brought on Butterfly Way Hamilton. So this is just trying to get kind of that thing where we're talking about where, you know, there's still a bit of pushback on what does a naturalized space look like? What can we do at home? This helps, right? You certify your garden, we give you a sign, you stick that sign there, your neighbors actually know what you're doing, and then it's not just this clump of weeds that you're growing now. And it also helps us see where there are gaps, because we do have a map that I try to update quarterly, let's say, when I have time. And it shows us where we need more effort. And then when we get extra funding from funders, we can do really cool things like make garden maps of all the beds. So this year, our intern Kat was able to go out and she surveyed all the beds and she made these really nice maps. They're on our Pollinator Paradise website, and you can look at them all and go, and you can actually like look at the plant and go, oh, that's what that looks like, or this is what it looks like at this time of the year. Just getting people engaged. Speaking of engagement, yes, outreach is part of stewardship, because if people don't know what we're doing, they don't know why we're doing it, they don't know why it's important, they're not going to care. And more importantly, they're not going to come out and help us do it. So we do a lot of work with stewardship. So you may have heard of our Biodiversity in Action walk series we did this summer. It was really nice. We had 5 different walks, and it was just a variety of topics. And basically doing what I'm doing now, saying, here's the BAP, here's some things that actually happen on the ground that make the BAP make sense, right? So here, this is what this says, here's what it looks like on the ground. We had a really good turnout for that. We were really happy with that one. We also do a quarterly newsletter for the Pollinator Paradise Project, just kind of updating people on like what's happening around pollinators specifically in the area. Jen and I will write wood duck articles. We'll go to public events. We'll talk to the media, and I run the social media. So anything that goes up there is up there. And it's all just trying to get people connected, to bring them back to why these things are important and why we need to care. So speaking of why you should care, we have things you can help. So this was mentioned earlier, we have some invasive shrub pulls coming up. So we just had one on Saturday. We are having 3 more. So 23rd, the 14th, and the 28th. It's lots of fun. It's at our Sheila Dundee Nature Sanctuary, which is basically near the RBG Main Center. And you can email Jen for directions. But yeah, we're pulling buckthorn by hand for the most part, or with extractigators. So if you want to work out your muscles, I also will bribe you. I bring candy and native plants you can take home. Yes, right. And then the other thing is our urban conservation. We're always looking for people to help. So from May to August, this can be, you can join us. Usually we do Thursdays mornings, or you can go out on your own. We have a couple people that just go out to the pollinator gardens and kind of take care of them for us. But like I said, we can't do this work without volunteers. So if you're inclined, you can talk to Jen or I after, and we can kind of give you more of a rundown of what these things entail. I think that's the end. Yes. Yeah. Does anyone have questions about our stewardship?
Brittany, I can't really see if anybody online has asked a question. There you go.
I do not see any notifications. People have more questions. Oh, yes. There you go.
We try to approach high schools in the Columbia College for volunteer work.
Yeah. So have we approached high school and post-secondary students for volunteer work? We have. It's been hard getting volunteers out. And this isn't just something that we are experiencing. It's every organization that's looking for volunteers. We're not really sure why, but yeah, we have had high school students come out. We've had post-secondary students come out. They don't stick. They come out for 1 or 2 and then they disappear, which is fine. But we'd like to get some more retention. Does anyone have any more questions for Jen about the BAP?
And you can always connect with us.
Yeah.
This is a one and only time that you can reach us, so feel free to reach out after as well.